Welcome to this tutorial for taking notes inside of your AP or college level classrooms. You know, when you take notes out of an article, out of a textbook or whatever, let's be honest, most students really don't enjoy doing that. And you're not alone. I don't really enjoy it all that much either. For me, it's a lot more relaxing and fun to just watch a video and just take in the information. So why do we take notes in the first place? Well, let me tell you a story about somebody who took a lot of notes, but probably did a little bit too much. I had a student several years ago, really great student, and I had assigned about 5 pages out of the textbook. He came in the next day and said, I took notes for 3 hours last night, Mr. Zucker. I didn't have time for that. And I said, really? How many notes did you take? He said, well, I took 12 pages of notes. Okay, we had a 5-page assignment. He ended up taking 12 pages of notes. Unfortunately, even though he was definitely a hard worker, he really took notes to the absolute end that you don't need to do. In fact, that's not the reason why we take notes. The reason why we take notes are really the 3 reasons why we take notes are the following. First of all, we want to take notes to stay engaged. Whenever we're just watching something, it's easy to get distracted. The second reason we want to take notes is we want to recall information. We don't need to take notes on everything. And we definitely don't need to take notes on things that we already really kind of know. We want to take notes on the things that we don't know and that we want to remember for the future. Remember, you've got 6 to 7 classes. It's hard to remember everything. And that brings up the last thing. When you're taking notes, you want to summarize, paraphrase, and be concise. The point of taking notes really is for your later recall. It's not about writing everything down. You want to write down the big ideas and the illustrative examples. What you're doing really is you're developing your muscle memory for class. So how do you do this? Well, let's jump into it. Okay, principle number 1. Make a map before you start taking notes. What the heck does that mean? So, you know, students really want to get their work done, right? We have so much work that we put on you guys. After a while, it feels like a checklist. And so what students will do is they'll just jump right into their notes and they'll just start taking notes. But there's a problem with doing that. It's sort of like if you were to go out on a trip somewhere, but you didn't take a look at a map or you have no GPS, you have no idea where you're going. And that's why a lot of students will tell me, you know, your advice is really good, Mr. Zucker, but you already know the information. How am I supposed to take notes on something I don't know? Well, you want to make a map. And here's how you do that. In pretty much every textbook, every article, there are titles and there are subtitles. You want to take a subtitle and you want to change it into a question. Why do you want to do that? By doing that, it tells you where the overall article is going. Those subtitles and titles are not there by accident. They summarize what's coming up in that section, and they give you a logical flow of where the author is going. By turning this into a question, you can basically just ask yourself a simple kind of question. What is the author doing in this section? I'll give you an example. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. Let's start off with the table of contents. Now, when I get down to the first chapter here, there's a section that says before 1200, patterns in world history. So what would I do with this? So what I'm going to do with that section is that I want to turn it into a question that will kind of highlight for me where things are going. So my question might be something like, what were the patterns of organization during the agricultural revolution? This gives me a map of where the author is going in the book. Principle number 2. Take notes on the big ideas and the illustrative examples. You know, so often I have students who will take down notes on everything. They'll take notes on everything from names to dates to numbers, etc., or every example that's there, and it'll take them forever to get their notes done. That's not what you're looking to do. You want to try and figure out the big ideas and the illustrative examples. You're not going to get tested on everything. You're going to get tested on whether or not you understand the overall idea and you have some examples to back it up. I know you might be saying, yeah, that sounds really good. But how do I know what the big ideas are? How do I know what the big examples are? Well, whenever you go through a body paragraph, the first sentence of it is the topic sentence. And after that, the author will use 1 or 2 big examples in their body paragraph. Take that topic sentence and summarize it. Scan through the big examples and then ask yourself, what's really important here about those examples? And take notes on the big details, not every single element of the story. Let me give you an example. Okay, so let's look at an example of a text where there's a lot of information here dealing with South Asian religions. But when I look at the end of the paragraph, I notice a really important point that the author is making. It's about Hinduism not being a missionary religion that seeks converts, but was more like Judaism, associated with a particular people and territory. Now, that's at the end of the paragraph, and so there's a significance to that. Now, how do I paraphrase that? Well, even there, I don't have to take down everything. All I have to take down was Hinduism was tied to people in India and their identity. The point is that we want to look for, what's the most significant part of the information that's being given, and what's the primary example that we can take down to remember it. And then we take it in a way that's concise, that we can paraphrase and summarize, make it our own, so we're not taking notes on everything. Principle number 3, summarize, paraphrase, and be concise. So many students want to take down everything. They want to just quote the book. That's not helping you. If you quote the book, all you're going to do is copy down a bunch of words you're going to forget later on. You want to take what you're reading and you want to summarize it into language you understand. Now, that takes a little bit of work because you have to read, understand, and then put it into your own words. But by doing that, you're more likely to have short-term and long-term memory of what you put down on the paper. So let me give you an example of how I would do this. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a pretty dense piece of text and see what we can do with it. So in this text, the author says the following. At one level, this emerging Hindu religious tradition was wildly polytheistic, embracing a vast diversity of gods and goddesses, each of whom had various consorts and appeared in a variety of forms. A priestly caste known as Brahmins presided over the sacrifices, offerings, and rituals that these deities required. But at another more philosophical level, Indian thinkers argued for a more unified understanding of reality. Now that's a lot of information. How do I summarize that and make it concise? Well, what I can just say off of that is Brahmins believed in multiple gods, but others believed in one reality. Notice I paraphrased, made it into my own words, made it concise for my long and short-term memory. Okay, here's your advanced principle, number 4, and it's overlapping. So it's a good idea to start off with trying to look at each paragraph at its own conceptual unit and trying to say, what's the big idea, what's the example? But after a while, you're going to start noticing that sometimes an author will spread out their ideas over 2 or 3 paragraphs. Sometimes you can literally scan half a page or even a page and start to realize that actually the big ideas are spread out over several paragraphs, and you don't need to take notes on every single paragraph. Once you can start to do that, then you can even make your notes even more concise. In fact, I would start off taking notes on each paragraph, but starting to push yourself to ask, can I read an entire column of a particular article and see whether or not I can actually see the common ground between paragraphs? Then the same thing for the second column, or maybe overall for the page. By doing that, you're going to start speeding up your pace and starting to see what the big ideas and the conceptual ideas and examples are for you to take notes on. So what are my big takeaways when it comes to note-taking, when it comes to the AP class or the college level class? First of all, remember, you're taking notes because you need to recall information and stay engaged. That's our first big thing that we want to do. We take notes inside of the class and we take notes in our books because we want to make sure we have information. Information is going to help us on tests, information to back up arguments and essays and activities. Second big takeaway that we want to remember, we're not taking notes on everything. The reason why that student that I had, who was a really hardworking student, took double the amount of pages for notes was because he took notes on every single word and more. You don't want to do that. You want to paraphrase, you want to summarize, you want to make it concise. You want to look for the big examples and the big ideas. And then advanced takeaway number 3 that we want to remember is overlapping ideas. After a while, when you speed up your pacing, you're going to see that some ideas are spread out over paragraphs. Examples are spread out over paragraphs. Look for that so that you can really make your ideas concise. By doing that, you're going to make your notes less, you're going to make them more concise, but you're going to remember more for the long period. And that's what's really important about why we do our reading. Okay, guys.